The following content is brought to you with funding from the Universal Service Fund USF via its local digital content development initiative. Enjoy the show.
What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to Money Talk with Pro. Hi, I'm Pro. On this channel, we talk about all things finance. That's in relation to personal finance and small business management. So if you want to learn how to attain financial freedom or how to manage your small business effectively, then you are in the right place. On today's episode, we are talking about building an emergency fund with an inconsistent income. And here to help us navigate that topic is Tumusime Msimuko from NICO Holdings. She is the head of portfolio and business development. NICO Holdings is a financial services company that offers different products and services in the finance sector here in Malawi and other African countries. Tumu, welcome to Money Talk.
Thank you, Pro.
Yes, and I understand you are a busy person. I mean, being the head of such a department, of such a big company, your schedule must be filled. So I don't take it for granted that you've taken your time to come down here and sit with me so that we can have this very important conversation.
No, it's my pleasure to be here today. Believe it or not, within my busy schedule, one thing that I'm very passionate about is imparting knowledge about saving and other tips, any tips that can help people improve their financial security and attain their financial freedom. So it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that very much. So an emergency fund, in my simple understanding, it's a fund you save to use for emergencies.
Correct. Yeah.
What has been your experience like with facing problems while having an emergency fund and not having an emergency fund?
Yeah, I think the challenge of not having an emergency fund is that you don't have that psychological freedom. So as a result, it's difficult for you to plan or to do certain things that you might wish to do.
Yeah.
So if you have an emergency fund, it gives you that cushion and gives you the freedom for you to be more creative, for you to be able to go for different types of things. Yeah. So yeah, it's very important to build an emergency fund.
Okay. And then like in today's economy,
yes,
the general excuse or reason that everybody has of not having any savings, let alone an emergency fund, is that the economy is bad.
Yeah.
How do we get people, business owners or just an individual to get the mindset for them to save an emergency fund,
Yeah, I think I do agree with you in this difficult economy. And I think particularly when you talk about business people and entrepreneurs who are not employed, there are many things that they have to worry about. Unlike those that are working, the medical is being covered by Nomazin. They can go on leave and the leave will still be paid. And they know that they will have a certainty that when they'll be able to receive funding. But for business people, the stress or the challenges that they have to navigate is a different level. So it's very important that one has to have a plan so that they can be able to have a way of building that emergency fund. It will also help them to relieve themselves from any psychological stress or uncertainty in terms of what could happen to them in the event of something that they're not expecting. Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of building that, I think the key thing is not to be overthinking it, because it's a process that you start slow, get the right information, and then you'll be able to work through the process and be able to build that kind of fund.
Okay, and starting slow here, how do we do that? Let's say because of the whole economy thing, for one, it means your income is inconsistent. Let's say you're a business owner, it means your income is inconsistent. What does taking slow look like to building an emergency fund?
So I think the key thing is the mindset.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that one has to be able to build that habit and to have that idea that I want to be able to build that fund.
Okay.
And once that they have that build that habit, they will be able to monitor their finances, and they will be able to see how they can be able to do that. Let me take it back. For everyone, in most cases, you have got, let's say the business people, they've got times when the incomes are high, times when the incomes are low.
Yes.
So it's very important that within whatever period you have, you should maintain that habit that I want to be able to save and put away something for myself.
Okay.
One can give themselves a certain amount, a certain minimum amount, that no matter what, I should be able to set aside this amount in a month.
Okay.
You could almost look at that saving as an expense. The way you have to go into the shop and buy certain groceries, why not keep that? Even for me to save, I need to cover this expense for saving. But now that is something that is going to help you in future.
Yes.
You cannot avoid the expenses that you have. So why not also make a plan to have a saving as an expense on your budget?
Almost feeling like rent.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Because mostly I think when it comes to saving, we look at what will remain. I have this money and then I do everything else. So if actually it's even not even what will remain, but if it remains, then I'll save for an emergency. But what you're saying is, if we don't treat it as like something like a lower priority, it has to be there. It's like something that you have to do.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah,
I think that would be good. So starting with a minimum amount.
Yes. And to that, for you to do that, it's important that you have a budget.
Yes.
Yeah. I think in most cases, sometimes we tend to underestimate the power and the importance of having a budget. And on your budget, if you have that, that every month you'll be able to, just the way that you have your expenses, your rent, your children's school fees, your food, anything that you may have. Now also have an amount for saving, such that once you receive whatever amount of money, and for business people, sometimes it could be weekly, monthly, it could be every day. So in the same manner that whenever you receive that amount of money, you know that you'll be able to allocate it accordingly without waiting for all the money to be finished and see what remains.
Yes.
Because that never happens.
It actually never almost it never happens.
Yes,
There's always something that comes up that looks like it's more important than this emergency.
Correct.
Thing. Okay, and in this case, when we say emergencies, what are we saying? Are emergencies the same? Can your emergency be my emergency, or what is an emergency?
Yeah, the emergencies really vary, and it could vary from a certain illness, or it could also be where you're expecting that your child was going to be selected to go to a public university, and the school fees will not be much, but that hasn't happened, and you have to take them to a private university.
Okay.
It could be a situation whereby your house maybe it was not properly insured, or your car has been in an accident. Then you need to take care of that emergency. It could be an illness in the family that you need a lot of money for the person to be assisted so that they feel better. And also it could be such that you as a business person, you're incapacitated. You can no longer use your talent, you can no longer use yourself, your skills in order to generate income. Then you need to have an emergency fund to sustain you through the period when you don't have anything that you can rely on.
Okay. So when one is saving for an emergency fund, do they need to have a certain figure in mind that this is what I need to have by December, for example, if you're in January? Like, is there a timeline for somebody to have an emergency fund?
What I say is it will be nice. It's good for one to be able to build a fund that, assuming you're not getting any income, it can take care of you for at least 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And I know for most people listening to that, it sounds like it's wild. It's not possible. But that will not happen overnight.
Okay.
So going back to the point of a budget, once you understand where your money goes, how much you spend in a month, then you can plan that, okay, for me to survive for 3 months, if I did not have any income, this is what I need. And then as you're saving, you will actually have a goal. It's actually quite motivating for you to be saving when you have an actual goal. Okay. If you're driving and you don't know where you're going, what's the point? But when you know that I'm going to Zomba, then you know that this is how many kilometers I have, and this is what I need to do. And then you work towards that. So if you're saving without a goal, then you may actually not be motivated. But say you've got a budget, you've understood your expenses, and you know that for you to save and survive for 3 months or 6 months without any income, this is how much you need. then as you're saving, you almost know that, okay, this is how far I am. Am I at 5%? Am I at 20%?
Yeah.
And as you're going, you keep motivating yourself to get to that point.
Okay.
So since the expenses are different from person to person, but at least one thing that one can do for themselves is understand how much they need for them to survive, and then use that as an amount that they should work towards to save and build an emergency fund.
Okay. Does this fund fall into the category where, like, in recent months, mostly last year, we've seen a lot of people like call out for donations? Yeah. Some are just normal individuals, but others are like famous public figures. And the comments that come through, some are genuinely sorry for them, but others like scold them, like, why were you not saving this whole time? Is this fund the same fund that can be used in such circumstances, or this is a completely different?
Yes, this is the same fund that can be used for such circumstances, in my view.
Okay.
But also one could actually have different layers of emergency fund.
Okay.
But the reason I'm saying that, and I think it brings to the reason that you do this, perhaps you could blame our system or our education system, where the financing bit is not taught as well.
Yes.
You know, in various spaces.
Yes.
So there are people that have had windfalls. Musicians or business people, they've had windfalls, but they did not know how best they can be able to save and maybe invest such that the emergency fund can sustain them at a time when they need it the most. So I do agree that it could be that same fund.
Yeah.
But as one goes, like I said, you need to have a target. Once you get to that target, you can actually say, okay, fine, now I can survive for 3 to 6 months without any income. What more? Can I now build a fund that can take care of my children's school fees? Can I now build a fund that can be used for medical in the event of this?
Okay.
So you can have different layers,
funds,
but it's for you to think of doing everything at once. Obviously, it's impossible.
Yes, and
you need
too
to
much.
take one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in this case, for example, I'll go back to musicians. Their reasoning is that we can't save because we don't know how much we'll make in a specific month. I may be booked 10 times this month and 0 next month.
Yes.
How on earth can I go about saving on a monthly basis?
And I think that I agree with that. It talks of how to manage your windfalls, the time when things are really good for you and the times when things are bad.
Okay.
And if you remember earlier, I said that you would be wise to set a certain minimum amount that you can save every month towards your personal goal, towards your personal financial goal. The time when you've got a windfall is the time that you need to take advantage.
Okay.
So assuming you had that goal that I need to build up this reserve for 6 months, and knowing your situation, it will probably take you 1 year to do that.
Yes.
But if you have a windfall, then that's the time for you to take advantage of achieving that financial goal quicker.
Okay.
So I would really commend that at the time when you've got a windfall, you've got a lot of money that has come through.
Yes.
That is the time to take advantage of achieving your goals quicker. That way you can also now go to the next target, the next goal that you might want to do. This way it also helps you during your lean periods. Because what if you had given yourself 1 year to achieve your goal, and before that 1 year has lapsed, you haven't been able to build up to that, but there's an emergency. But that windfall that you had received and pushed more towards saving is going to help you so that you can survive during that lean time
when you're not getting any work.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it is our nature. We like kuzipepesa.
Yes, because actually that's what would come up first. We'd be like, hey, I haven't worked for 3 months.
Yes.
And now I have all this money.
Yes.
Hey, I need to go here. I need to buy this.
But imagine how nicer, how much better that kuzipepesa could feel when you've already achieved that financial goal of setting aside something for an emergency fund. Okay. Then you know that even if you're taking some money and spoiling yourself, you're not affecting your financial plan, you're not affecting your emergency fund. So it would feel much better knowing that whatever you're doing is not affecting you or could affect your livelihood in the event that something happens to affect your financial circumstances.
Okay. And then where am I saving this money now, this emergency fund?
Yeah, that's a very, very important point too, and I think that's really where my expertise comes in. There are various options for saving, for investing in Malawi, and that cater for all different income brackets.
Okay.
For example, there are some policies that one can buy with as low as 15,000 kwacha a month.
Okay.
And that amount can be able to grow and give you that comfort that once it matures, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, or 7 years, or even 12 years, then you've got something that you can actually rely on. You can almost tie it to one of your personal goals. Okay. For example, you can say, okay, I'll tie this to the time that my child is going to university, or I'll tie this to the time that I want to buy a car, I want to buy a house. So you can be able to tie that saving to that. Okay. The other options that you also have with different asset managers, such as NICO, there are fixed deposits, there are shares, the Malawi Stock Exchange. With shares, the minimum is you can only buy one share.
Yes.
So the cheapest counter now is going for the DHL, it's about 14 kwacha.
Yes.
So imagine that with 14 kwacha, you can be able to start your journey towards investing, not just saving but investing. Okay. Because if those shares grow over a long time, it means then you've got something that you haven't just contributed yourself, but they've been returns. You've made your money work for you. Yes. So as business people, they are busy. Obviously, they're focusing on their hustle, whatever it is that they're doing. They may not have the time to know how to invest. Yes. But there are financial experts and financial advisors out there, even at the banks, at NICO, asset managers, who can be able to advise accordingly that this is how you can do it. And then as they're investing the money for you, the money is working for you. The money is growing. As you're focusing on other things, your money is also growing. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So, but in this case, for example, like the emergencies we're talking about, maybe a car breaking down or like an illness, the options that you're stating here, won't it take a long time for one to access that? Because if you're saving for an emergency, you want to be able to get it like as soon as the emergency falls on you. So,
okay, no, that's a very, very important point. The investment options that are there, they will depend on what the person is looking for. Okay. There are some investments that are going to grow your money, but they are also easily accessible. Okay. Within maybe 2 to 3 days, you can be able to access the money.
All right.
There are other long-term investments that may not be easily accessible. Maybe you may need a week to 2 weeks before you can be able to access your money. So, and it goes back to the point that I said that your initial emergency fund, you might wish to invest it in a way that you can easily access it. Yes. Because you don't want that you've got something happening and you've got your money and they're telling you need to wait 3 months and it's an emergency. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So the investing has to be in line with what it is that a person wants to achieve, and the investment plan will be different from person to person. Okay. Depending on where they are in their life, depending on where they are with their plan, so that they can be invested in a line that is relevant or rather useful with their particular investment. Their particular fund that they're saving for. Okay. Yes. What I mean by that is if you're at the first level of investing, then you need to focus on something that is easily accessible. If you're on the second level, then you can go for shares that are more long term and give you growth. Exactly, that's what I was trying to say.
Okay, so go step by step. Don't do that all at once. Yes, because for example, somebody may hear this episode and then they'll be like, I don't have a policy, I don't have shares, I don't even have the fund, so I need, I'm behind, I need to do all this now. So what you're saying is no, one go at a time. Okay.
One go at a time. And the one key thing I think that you had also asked earlier is that for example, musicians that we keep referring to, they don't have to wait to get that windfall. Okay. But they need to seek that information right now, seek the knowledge, such that when they have the windfall, they shouldn't just think of what they have to do with at the moment. Yeah. Because when you have a windfall, everybody around you, they will know. and they'll give you all sorts of stories, and you believe it. Obviously, it's good to help other people, but you need to have a plan. That way, when you've got that windfall, you will be able to allocate it accordingly, whether this goes to saving, this goes to investing,
this goes to helping.
Yes. Yeah, but if you don't have a plan in advance, if you don't have the knowledge in advance of what you can do with the money, then people will convince you of all sorts of things. Some people will even convince you to invest in a certain business that has got nothing backing it, and then you end up losing your money. So it's very important to seek information at the right time and have a plan.
Yes.
Once the money comes through, this is what I would do with it.
So right now is actually the time to start seeking the knowledge and planning.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So how can one stay motivated to be saving for an emergency fund when one, progress is slow in that they keep getting little money month by month, and then two, the economy, you keep hearing the kwacha has devalued by 2%. So really what you saved last month, that 10,000 is no longer 10,000 or whatever amount. So how can one keep going with this kind of environment?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good question. I think for me, the first point that I would say is that you should be able to visualize the peace of mind that you would have if you've got that emergency fund.
Okay.
That peace of mind, knowing that, I can try this business, and even if it doesn't work out today, I've got something that I can fall back on. So, and I say this from experience. A friend of mine was starting her own business, and the first few months she couldn't sleep because she was very stressed.
Okay.
That what will I pay my staff?
Yes.
What if this payment doesn't come through? What will I do? So it really gave her a lot of stress. Fortunately for her, she was able to go by. She had to cut down a lot of her personal expenses, but she managed to keep her business going afloat. Over the last few years, she's been able to build an emergency fund such that she knows that even if there are delays in payments, she'll be able to pay her staff, and she'll be able to pay the bills around. So that mindset, that peace of mind that you can have once you've achieved, you'll be able to sleep. You'll be able to give yourself some days off and say, look, today I'm not going to the market, I'm not hustling today. I just want to sit and relax because you have given yourself that break.
Yeah.
So another way of staying motivated is being able to see and track the progress that you're making and achieve whatever little progress that you're able to achieve. There are so many apps in this day and age, budgeting apps, savings apps, where you can actually sit down every day in the evening and look at how much what sort of expenses you've had, and if you had any money that coming through. That way, we're able to track, see what you've been able to cut down from your expenses, see how much you're able to save. It begins to motivate you.
Yeah.
It's like you're wanting to build a house and just having a plan is one thing, but once you see it coming from the ground and the roof, the walls coming up, it keeps you motivated. So, number one, have that mindset that this is what I want to achieve. Have a clear goal. Have a realistic timeline for yourself for achieving that goal. Track the expenses that you have. And then as you monitor your progress, you have to celebrate, every small win that you have.
Okay.
By celebrating, I'm not saying go
spend that emergency.
But it helps you to stay motivated that, look, I've moved from 20%, I'm at 75%.
Yeah.
It means I do this, and if that 75% is only coming from your savings, and you've invested it in the right place, perhaps the moving from 75% to 100% will not even require you putting additional money. It will be investment income. It will be growth coming from the right investments that you had made.
Yeah.
So follow whatever you're doing, track your progress, and that way I believe that one would stay motivated to remain on their course.
Okay. So the very first thing is the mindset.
That mindset, yeah. That piece of visualize it. That if I achieve this, I would be able to do this.
Okay. So what would you say to somebody who is maybe in their 40s, they feel they have nothing. They have no emergency fund. Maybe they have debt somewhere. and they have monthly bills to pay. What steps should they take? Should they start with the fund? Should they start with the debts? What can they do? They're feeling left behind.
Okay, so that's a good question, and I think it's something that maybe a lot of people are feeling at the moment. And the first thing is that I would just emphasize that it's never too late.
Okay.
They say the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yes.
The next best day
is today. Yeah.
So if you have that information now, it's not too late to get started to do that. And in the situation that you explained, I would advise that one should focus on building that fund first.
Okay.
Saving first, and try to once they've been able to achieve that, then try to pay down maybe the most expensive debt first.
Okay.
Little by little. That okay, let me reduce this debt so that they're not taking themselves back. So the reason I'm saying this is that once you've got that fund, remember I spoke about your freedom to be creative.
Yes.
So it means you will be able to work harder, knowing that let me try this, I can be able to manage my situation.
Okay.
But if everything that you're making, you're just
going away,
it means your progress may be slow.
Okay.
It will come through, but it may be slow. But if you have a right balance where most of it, assuming that you're able to put away, for example, 50,000 or 100,000, then if you're saying 75 is going towards your saving, 25 is going towards paying down your debt, then I think you quickly find yourself in a situation where you're able to balance. You've paid off your debt, you've achieved your goal, then you can actually be able to push more into clearing the debts that you have.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think once you do that, then you set yourself, you give yourself a good baseline so that you can be able to move forward quickly and achieve some of the goals that you might have.
Okay. So take care of yourself first, because that sounds like that. Eat first and then share.
Well, in a way, but the reason really is to ensure that it's you've got a balanced way of looking at it, because you could find yourself that if everything that you're generating, all your profits, you're pushing towards the debt, and you're not, you sort of be feeling constricted all the time, that everything I need to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're building that fund, then it gives you that freedom mindset. It gives you that relieves the psychological stress that you have from not having anything that you can rely on. Because even when you still have that Bongole, no matter how big it is, something could still happen that is going to make things worse.
Okay. Yeah.
So you want to have a situation whereby you're still building that reserve, such that as you're doing this, and if there's an eventuality that happens, or there's a need for you to draw from your emergency fund, you have something to rely on.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, just some final tips on our viewers. Like, what's one simple change someone could make to get started right now, start building an emergency fund?
I think number one tip I would say is that you need to focus on what you can control.
Okay.
Different people give you different advice. You yourself understand yourself the most. You know what's going on around you. There may be different pressures, things that are pushing and pulling in different directions. But there are certain things that can be within your control, and other things that are not within your control.
Okay.
If you try to do everything at once, you feel overwhelmed and you not achieve anything.
Yeah.
But if you focus on what you can control and put all your energy towards that, then you'll find that you're able to achieve certain things, and everything else begins to fall in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I breathe like that because I think I've tried trying to control everything. It never works.
Yeah. And you need to be patient and give yourself time, because everything that we've talked about, building an emergency fund, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Okay.
It's a marathon that you need to just keep going and going and going for a while.
Yeah.
If you try to make it as a sprint, then you find yourself, you keep tripling, you keep falling, and you really not be able to get anywhere. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good advice. Okay. And then I think you already spoke about prioritizing saving something and not just sending everything to paying off your debt. So now for back to like the environment for entrepreneurs, freelancers, musicians who are struggling to save in today's economy. Any final tips for them?
Okay, I think the most important thing is for them to seek the knowledge.
Okay.
Believe you me, a lot of them, and I've had discussions with some of them, they don't have the right information. They don't have the knowledge.
Okay.
Some of them are just keeping maybe money in a current account in the bank, and it's not earning anything. Some of them have invested in their friend's hustle that they've ended up being ripped off.
Oh, sure.
Some of them have lent money to people that have never paid them back because they didn't know what else they can do with the windfall or the money that they have. Some of them think that they need to have a lot of money first for them to start saving. And that's a very big misconception. Like I said, number one, have a plan.
Okay.
And you can save as little as 15,000, 20,000, 50,000, any amount. So do not be cheated that you need to have, a lot of, you might hear different people talk about their wealth on social media, but it didn't come overnight. They started somewhere. So they need to not underestimate themselves. Whatever little they have, financial advisors out there will be able to talk to them and advise them accordingly. And they shouldn't wait until they get older, or they shouldn't wait until, something begins to change in their lives. As soon as possible, start that plan, that journey towards saving, that journey towards investing. And they'll find themselves that they'll be like most of these musicians, out in other countries where they've been able to build empires beyond their musical careers.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. That is very sound and very clear. Seek the knowledge, believe in yourself, and that mindset. Visualize the peace that you will have when you have an emergency fund.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I thank you so much for taking your time again. This has been very helpful. And I'm sure all of our viewers will agree that this knowledge is the kind of knowledge that we need actually to have from as early as even primary school. Just a little bit about saving, investing. It's going to help us as we are now growing and being the leaders of the future. We were being told then that we are the leaders of the future. I don't know if the future is now. So we need this knowledge. So our viewers, thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video. I am sure you learned a thing or two. If you have any questions about what our guest spoke about, please put them in the comment section and we'll get back to you. Or you can also email to the email address that's in the description box. Until next time, please subscribe to the channel, like and share this video. And we'll see you again in our next episode. Bye.